Welcome back to Beyond Uncharted. We're here with the boys and a special guest, Scott. So we're excited to get chatting. I'm Johnny from Adirondack Bigfoot. Your hostess with the mostest, right, Dave? Didn't you say that?
Absolutely.
Uh,
Uh,
Scott, you want to give yourself a quick little intro?
Yeah, I'm Scott. I'm half of the Ryan and Scott cast. I just big alien enthusiast, and I'm excited for this show.
All right, Dave.
I'm Dave. I'm just friends with Scott and John, and maybe half researcher, half storyteller.
Love it, love it. And then our special guest, Scott. So we got two Scotts. How are we
Yep,
gonna break this up? Scotty and
I'll be
Scott?
the ugly one.
Okay.
Well, I'll be the one in a. I just had my right shoulder arm reattached to my shoulder, so I'll be the one.
Ah,
Okay.
Yeah. So, okay. My name is Scott Varden. I
yep.
was born and brought up in Tupper Lake. I'm Rh negative. I was a super preemie in Tupper Lake, making it in 49. That's a miracle in itself. Trust me.
Mm.
The whole story, though, according to all the documents, back then, I don't know if they still do it. When you're born, they must still do it because they picked the heel of the child and they tested the blood. If it was
Yep.
Rh negative, they had so many hours to report that to a certain agency, which means I already know. She talked to me several times. I've had a follower, not the same one from birth, but there's a special group formed in the military intelligence agencies that keep track of Rh negative. Why? Well, I can tell you one thing that they're telling their people because I know a lot of guys in the military, and when I run into somebody, they know that I brief our Space Force at Fort Drum and that I brief that other places. And they also know that I have followers and that I'm Rh negative because the guys say Varden. I said, what? You know what those assholes are telling us? And I said, I can only imagine. They're telling us that you're an alien. Well, I said, tell them we all are.
Mm.
Basically,
I
we
agree
are.
with that.
Huh?
I agree with that.
Yeah, you're right. You're right.
And there's
Except
and there's
some of
and
us
Scott,
are
they're saying
oldest.
that just because of your blood type.
No, it's because of having QHHTs with Diane Morrison. Yeah, Jim's daughter, number one for Dolores Cannon, and then the rest of them, her group. Yeah.
Okay.
Um, basically, I know all my past lives, how many times I had to reincarnate to solve the problem. And well, here goes. I know for a fact 6 hours after that ship left on the first fourth quarter moon visit in September 15th, 2014, 4 hours after the ship left, I got a phone call request for a Zoom meeting from a male and female Mossad agent out in LA raising money. And so naturally, here's the reason why I would take a Zoom. When I got shot working undercover narcotics for the New York State Police in 1969, the same year I handed them the largest drug bust in the history of the DEA on the East Coast. Robert Francis Hearn's family barn up in Highgate, Vermont, full of black opiated hash and high grade shit from floor to ceiling. I got the files on that too. Um, yeah, I got shot later on,
Mm.
and I took one in the head and two in the
Jeez.
gut. No, I wear. I can show you the bullet that's around my neck now. Um, Tupper Lake, of course, couldn't do shit. I was put in their ambulance. Billy Furnett drove it. They picked up my mother at Sunmount Gate. Was out of her mind, naturally. And Saranac Lake drugged me up, had the ferry held, and I was brought to UVM, where Dr. Charles Barnum, Israeli Mossad major who did every burn case in the 67 war, was on call. What the fuck was he doing there?
Mm.
Well, I'll tell you what he's doing there because I didn't even know what planet I was on.
Mm.
I can remember when you're drugged heavily like that, I can remember the sliding me, you know, naked on the operation table, and this old guy standing there in full gear, the lights on, you're blinded, and he's got my head and he says, "Oh my God, I haven't seen a wound like that in the last time, yeah, in a long time." That's what I remember. Okay. About a month later, I wake up, he's sitting on my bed and he's got my head in his hands. He's looking at my face. So I got two IVs in each arm, and I've got the two drain things on each up my nose, because it tore up my sinuses. Um, excuse me. I said, "Who the fuck are you?" This is you don't know even what happened to you or what.
Were
And
you in a
he
coma for a month?
For a long time I was, but
Okay.
they
Okay.
kept on. Hey, if you could see my face
Mm.
compared to what it looked like, I had a hole basically the size of a tangerine on the left side of my face underneath the eye. Now, because of this man, the miracle worker, we call him, I have a pinpoint scar in the area left of my eye where the bone is that wraps your skull.
Mhm.
But that bullet went behind my eye and they couldn't get it out without ruining or losing the eye, which I still had partial vision of,
Mm.
and the facial nerves. So they left it in there. But it, like I said, there was other surgeries for the bone matter.
Yeah.
I never realized that you could do that with bones, but I knew
No.
about skin and everything. But there's no scar. It's
Yeah.
absolutely amazing.
So Scott,
So yeah,
how old were you when this happened?
let me see. I was illegally working narcotics. I wasn't 21. I was 20.
Oh, okay. And
That's
then
why they buried it. But you see, the thing
uh,
is, what happened is how I got involved.
yeah.
Well, I had an uncle that was a trooper and a couple friends. Tupper Light was different back then.
Yeah.
And so my brother-in-law, my future brother-in-law, came up from Long Island to go to North Country. He met my sister. They were getting married, and he got a job after the end of the year graduation at North Country with United Airlines in down at Kennedy. So they moved, and he was working undercover narcotics. I didn't know this until my father came to me and he said, "Scott," he explained it to me. I was shocked. And he said, "But because the guys like you in this local state police, I wasn't, a dickhead then.
Yeah.
Um, but they said they were wondering if you would sit down and talk to them." I said, "I don't care. Of course. This is." So Ronnie was a bartender at the store in Saranac Lake. Jim McClay owned it. Bands every weekend. It was a rocking place. It was an old grocery store that he turned into a nightclub. And so Ronnie got me a job there. And of course, I met with the state police, and Chick Fountain came to the house. He was in charge of narcotics. Tim McCullough, Uncle Warren. There might have been another local trooper there. I don't remember, but someone out of maybe headquarters said to Ray Brook. So in any event, I did. The rest is history. I
Yeah.
tell you right now.
So they asked you to help out with something, and then
Well,
that's how
well,
you
no,
ended up
I
getting
worked
caught?
undercover narcotics.
Oh,
In other
gotcha.
words, I would make buys and intel, or set up an intel thing.
Gotcha.
So the thing is, I am responsible for the sixth largest drug bust in the history of the United States,
Mm.
and it's only because it's like the Gardner Museum case. It's only because I noticed something very odd and I can't get it out of my goddamn mind, and I just it's just like you go to bed thinking about it. Why did he do that? Why did they say that? Why did uh, why did these two guys on the wanted poster for the Gardner Museum think that they could wear a Boston cop uniform and rob the Gardner Museum in Boston and no one would know it because they weren't fucking cops. That's why.
Yeah.
Okay, so regardless, okay, so welcome to my world.
Yeah.
Okay, and
Thank you
I'm
for
going to
the
be
invite.
honest. Wait a minute, I'm going to be honest. The first case, Robert Francis Hearns there.
Yep.
Okay, Judy Schomeyer and I were going out that night because of
Mhm.
something that happened in our class that day,
Mm.
where my boss took the course, criminal justice, and 26 women. Him and I, the only two men. Now get this. The name of the criminal justice case was deviant and sexual behavior.
Hmm.
Yeah, uncomfortable. So this girl who I interviewed later at Potsdam State, we both transferred there, was giving her paper or whatever on cunnilingus. Now you can imagine what it was like sitting in the room with 26 beautiful women and and two guys. So my Judy Schomeyer is on my right side. She was an Olympic skater, and so summer school class, and Chick was sitting across from me.
Yeah.
And when this girl started describing about, you know, getting eaten out, I'm serious. Chick started trying to pick his nose with his tongue to make me laugh, which I just put my head down because. And so to break the, I went to give Judy an elbow. She was on my right. She turned to me at the same time, so I got her right in the breast. And I apologized. And she said to me, I was wondering when you were going to do that. I said, hey, kid. She says, what? I said, you want to go out and get eaten tonight? She looked at me. She said, yeah. So we went out to dinner. I can tell you what. And then we're walking around Lake Flower. She didn't know the history of Paul Smith or anything like that. The
Uh,
dam.
mhm.
Yeah. So in any event, we're right in front of the town hall, the old one, where the police station used to be and everything. And so I'm giving her the history on it. Just as, I'm getting into it, Oliver O'Harahan, the biggest drug dealer up there, whose father was an Essex County judge, yeah, runs up to me and he grabs me. Oh, I'm thinking, oh no, God, please. So I said, Judy, so I dropped her hand and I pushed him aside. He said, what the fuck? You better be careful. I said, you know who that is? He goes, I don't know, but boy, she's hot. I said, listen, you fucker, if I don't get laid tonight, what the fuck do you want? He points over to this car across from the water hole there. Parked, the guy's got his trunk open like he's got a deer in there or something. He said, Robert Francis Hearn is here. And he says, Scott, you got any fucking drug you want? He says, I know that you're dealing in Tupper Lake, which I wasn't. That was the cover. But he says, whatever you need. I said, listen, you son of a bitch. I hope she didn't hear that. He goes, why? I said, she's an Olympic skater. She's not any drugs, you fucking moron. He said, okay. I said, okay. So just keep it cool, bud. I said, I'll talk to you later. He said, where you going? I said, I'm going to the show and then we're going back to her place. So just fucking mind your own business.
Yeah.
Then he says to me, you know what? I said, Ollie, I can only imagine. He told me his parents' barn in Highgate, Vermont is full from floor to ceiling with the high grade black opiated hash. One toot on that shit, you're gone. And he said some high grade. Yeah. I said, well, that's nice to know. Thank you.
Yeah.
I'll see you later. We go to the movies. Judy's got to go pee pee. I put a quarter in the phone. I call Fountain at home. I'll send you a file on that. Maxie Hunt, all those guys, Don Ham, arrested 11 trying to protect Hearn at the water hole that night. And so, yeah, he did get convicted 2 days
Wow.
later.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Great.
88, the largest drug bust in the history of the East Coast, Robert Francis Hearn's family barn, Highgate, Vermont. So
Yeah.
that sets a standard.
For
Okay.
hash.
Yeah. So in any event, I
I
get
love it.
shot. I go into military. 4.5 months later, I'm assigned to the fucking CIA because
What
my mother
Harry?
because my mother, right, and my aunt. I you know this is why I'll send you my written orders. The book is in editing, and the other thing is what? I got a movie deal.
Hmm.
I tell you how that happened. First of all, when I solved the case, found the wanted poster, I didn't want a thing to do with the case because of my study Joe. I gave it to Danny Manor, who was working for the district attorney of St. Lawrence County. He said, Scott, I told him I don't want a thing to do with it. Don't mention my name. He shoved it to Syracuse. Syracuse shoved it to DC. And one evening, Jim Comey calls me and he says, Scott, what do you want? Uh, we set him up. Jim was laundering money in HSBC Bank in 87 for the fucking CIA, for the drugs. That's three of my best friends, all New York State employees. One New York State trooper, Troop B, rotor pilot, Bob Metcalf, he's now passed. Jim Tinney out of ADOT Watertown, and his boss, Bob Lee Rivers, out of Albany headquarters. Got the deal. They came to me. Hey, we got a deal. I said, what's that? We can get a leave of absence and get paid from both jobs. The CIA has asked us to fly the weapons into Nicaragua. I said, oh, really? I said, well, be careful. They said, why? I said, my experience. I said, is that they tell you what they need to do to get you somewhere, and there's something else they're going to tell you you're going to have to do when you're done. And I think I know what it is. And yeah, they flew all that fucking cocaine in New York Air National Guard, C-130 pilots too, all certified. Yep. So whatever happened to Louis Freeh, this is something that the feds are very upset about and working on.
Yeah.
Number one.
Does that have
Okay.
anything to do with the drug raids now that they're doing and
Yep. Yep.
blowing up the ships and all that?
Yep. It's the cabal's real, the Illuminati's real, but I wouldn't want to be them, because that meeting that never happened in the history of the United States military, when all the generals and generals from some other countries show up at Quantico. You don't know. I mean, I know what they were briefed on, because now we're going to go back to our business here.
Yeah.
So after this happened to me with these Wookiees, I'm thinking, wow, that's weird. Okay, the Israelis, they called in their favor. And I said to them, hey, I'll be there. And I know why you're doing it. But I said, I'm not going fucking anywhere until my 3 cases are done. And he says to me, what are they, Scott? I explained it to him. He said, that's honorable. I said, I am too. I said, you guys saved my life, and I realize that. But this is important. He said, I agree with you, and we'll see you when you're done. He said, I got to go, Scott, but she's got a list for you. I assume photographs. Okay, she's good. So Laura's, was making dinner, and I said, come here, something. So she uses her, what do you call it, Apple, both have the Apple computer. But the
Yep.
thing is, instead of sending me a list of photos that I could compare, she sends me a list of 150 enlightened people with my name at the top with 3 stars, and everyone else 1. Now, 149, I knew from my hometown. She's not the only one, okay? However, once. I hadn't seen her in years. She used to babysit Laura's kids. So they came in October, but every other night, only 4th quarter moon did the red ship come, because if you hold space when there's a high tide, you're going to making floods. Okay. So in any event, but every night it was some other ship. Now, the only time that I can remember ever meeting anybody, and I mean, I've been taken over 200 times, is that night that I told you at
Yeah.
Clarkson. Okay.
Right.
All the rest of them look just like you and I.
Hmm.
But it's almost like you're looking at perfect beings. You know what I mean? I mean, their features, and most of the communication is telepathy, but also speaking like you and I. Let's get back to the list. 149 in November, 2 or 3 days after their visit. One of our childhood friends, Bummer Brown, we called him, who used to buy, he was older, bought our beer. passed away in Tupper Lake. So I called my buddies Jay Halpern and Gary Denyu because they used to buy our beer. I mean, when we were kids, and I said, hey, look, a bummer died. And they said, yeah, we know Scott. I said, look, I said, I know you can't make it, but I'm going to go and represent us. And I did. Now get this. I walk into the church at the junction. It's closed now. And there's only two places to sit in the back right row. And one of my buddies' mom was there, my mother's friend. And so I slide in there and give her a hug and everything. And, you know, I'm just looking at church was full. I mean, it was full. This is how everybody loved Bummer. And the thing is, though, I noticed someone singing and playing the organ. So I said to Marge Bashan, I said, hey, Marge, who's that? She goes, oh, my God, Scott. She's so-and-so. 149 on the list. I said, she looks like an angel to me.
Mm.
So I didn't tell her anything else, you know. And so when it was all done, I just sat there and she says, are you coming? I said, no, I'll meet you up at, you know, they always have an after funeral dinner. Let's put it this way, at the VFW or at the HGA. So, so I'm sitting there, everybody leaves, except Deanna's parking up her shit music. And I walk up to her and I said, hey, Deanna, how are you? She turns around, she looks at me, she says, who are you? I said, Scott Barnbay. Here's what came out of her mouth. Oh my God, she said, they visited you 3 times and they visited everybody else once.
Mm.
And then she says, and they took a DNA sample from you. Of course, I said, I was shocked. I said, what the fuck did they do that? She said, she says, in case something happened to you, he says, hold on, I gotta take this. No, I'm not going to he says, in case something happened to you, you'll have a 38-year-old body to incarnate into. Now I know the technology's there. Yeah, because my work, you cannot believe what I've uncovered.
Hey, Scott, can I stop you right there for a second? I got a
You
question.
sure can.
So let's back up for a second. You said you've been taken, and you haven't said it out loud, but you're talking. You've been taken 200 times by aliens, is what you're saying.
I have after 200. I stopped counting.
And what do they do? Like, is there?
Well, one of the things.
What do they look like? What are they trying to get from you? Are they extracting stuff from you?
No. It's who my soul is, and my purpose. I know how to fold space and stop time. They're offering us to join the council as long as we take out the garbage, you know, clean up the ship, which we're doing now worldwide, and get back on the purpose of the path of life to be in service to others. This is what they've said, and not just to me, to other people. So this is what we're dealing with. I think my grandson's game is over with, and that's why he just called me. I got to take this call. Just hold, please.
You got it. We'll chat it up.
Yeah.
Dave, your thoughts, please.
Well, you know, 2 of them.
Okay.
One is extraordinary claims require extraordinary evidence. And the other one is the world is so crazy, extraordinary claims are common amongst people because, you know, I don't follow the UFO abduction scenario as much as Scott does, but from what little I do, he said things that I hear a lot. You know, people are either taken for their semen or their eggs.
Great game.
Right. Yeah.
Okay, gentlemen, I will call you back in a while.
Okay.
Okay.
Bye.
Thanks, Scott.
Yeah.
You're welcome.
But there does seem to be this, I hate to use the word new age, but I'll use it for a lack of better terms.
Yeah.
This kind of like new age thing where the aliens are going to help us and they're taking us and having some of us be on their side and offering us to be part of their plan, you know, to clean up the planet and things like that. Who knows, right? I don't doubt it. I'm thinking though, with each passing year, the world gets more crazy. And sometimes I tend to think, well, how long will they wait before they do something?
Yeah.
Right.
That's kind of going off topic, but anyway, there's so much there. It's hard to unpack it all, but it's very interesting.
Right. And there have been talks. Have you seen the like the talks of the mothership that's coming that should be here what like around Thanksgiving or something, right? Was that what they said?
Yeah.
And it's like the size of Manhattan.
Yeah.
So I mean, I don't know. I have no idea. I don't know what to think. I don't know. I mean, if it crashes somewhere, where's it going to land? How long will it take them to? I mean, are they going to be hostile if it's true? I mean, it will just send the world into strict panic
Yeah.
if that actually happens.
Well, I've been kind of looking up like what's Rh negative. That's the first I've heard of that. So that's a protein that's on the red blood cells. I guess it's important. So, I
Okay.
mean, and I think that,
It's rare too, isn't it?
yeah. And that's parental. I don't know. There's a lot about it, but
Okay.
I like that he kind of kicks it off with birth.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah.
I
I'm
wish we could have.
RH negative, super preemie, and then
Yeah.
uh, getting wrapped
Ju-
up in some government stuff, and next thing you know, abductions start.
yeah. He got me really excited with some of this stuff. I wish I could have quizzed them on like some alien types, maybe something that what type of alien he thought it was that was in there, or what did he see while he was in there? What does the ship look like? Stuff like that. I mean, he wasn't as far as details go.
Yeah, what's good too, Scott, is because Preston Dennett and also Dr. David Jacobs, who works with abductees, he's outlined like what the inside of a ship looks
Yep.
like and how they go about their business. So if someone was on board a ship, they should be able to repeat. So a good question would be like, how do they operate? What's their standard procedure? Do they give them each other hand signals? Do they
Right.
automatically know what they're doing? Did they ever take you from one room to another? Is there ever
Sure.
any more there person there than besides you? Things like that.
Right. Yeah. That Stan Romanok that would get I think it's called Extraordinary. I think I talked to you guys about it before. He was saying that when he would get abducted, he would always get like nosebleeds and stuff when he would come back. And yeah, so I guess I'd just like to pick Scott's brain a little more about what's actually what
Ask him if he
goes
has any are weird scars or any implants too.
on. Yeah,
I would think if he's being abducted that much, he would probably be implanted or at least marked
right. Yeah,
somehow.
true.
But,
Yeah, there's a lot of what ifs. He left a little too a little too soon.
where my brain is, guys, and I'll be honest, is it's an awesome story. I want to keep listening.
Yeah,
And then for my own curiosity, I have all these questions.
sure.
But then I'm also
Right.
like, am I being entertained? Do I just want to selfishly know what's this like? But that's like, do I need to back up and say, hey, can we back up and kind of prove a couple of these things? Like there's a million places to go. I don't even know where to go.
Right. Yeah,
That's just
exactly.
so much. I mean,
Yeah.
you missed the first 15 minutes. He opened it
Oh,
up,
jeez.
came in hot.
Oh, wait,
Yeah.
was he out? Did he
Don't
come in
record
early?
this, and then really went into it. But so a couple of things. So we talked about the RH negative, 9/15/2014. I can't find anything online about that particular date, but it does say around then, around that time, in 2014, early 2015, is when the government started acknowledging a lot of UFO activity. And,
Okay.
and so that's kind of where that kicks off.
Okay.
So I don't know if there's something specific. He knows that the internet doesn't know. And then the slack moon, so I'm trying to fourth quarter slack moon. So that's about what that means. What happens during that particular time is the gravitational pull of the moon and the earth work against each other. So we have less of a tide during that particular time. So I don't know. That's interesting, right? Because you don't know if does that mean if there was something incoming, it would be easier for them or,
Right. Do they plan them coming here around that to
right.
make it right to make it easier? Do they get here quicker? Is it? Yeah,
Yeah.
that's a good point. Hmm. See,
Okay.
when people say weird stuff like that I've never heard, I'm like,
Yeah.
maybe they freaking do know something.
That's right. Yeah.
It's like, what in the world
Yeah.
is that?
Well,
Huh?
Dave called out the mind speak part, so that was pretty cool. And I love the coffee mug too. His son to call
Yeah,
Yeah, I love it, man.
that is nice.
Yeah, it's part of me wants to ask, maybe I'll do it on the side. Part of me wants to ask him if he can have anybody vouch for him, like
Right.
another police officer or something. But I don't want to sound accusatory because I
Right.
don't want to
Right.
be that way either. But um, yeah, there's a lot there. He's the type. You ever have a podcast you follow and they have someone come on who's got such a crazy story with so many areas that they have him back like 3 or 4 times?
Yeah.
Yeah.
He seems like a part 3, part 4 type of kind of guy.
Right.
Sure.
Plus, he's rambling off people's names. Like, I don't even know people in my family's names that well. You know
Right.
what I mean? And he's
Yeah.
rambling off these names, and this is the sheriff, and this is the DA, and I was like, holy moly!
Yeah.
Like, I don't have the space in my brain to hold all that information.
Never. Never. Yeah. He's super smart.
Yeah. So maybe there is something going on there. Yeah.
I love it. So 200 over, stop counting at 200 abductions.
Wow.
Well,
God.
Dr. David Jacobs says most people are abducted when they're infants, and they're abducted up to 10 times a year. So that would make sense.
Yeah.
Wow.
He seems to think that if you're an abductee, your parents were abductees. It kind of stays within a. So I
Wow.
don't know if his parents were. It's hard to say.
Well, I say we
And
get
he-
Mr. Scott here, the expert.
yeah. Well,
So, so
and he
Scott,
seems to be basing a lot of that around that. What was it? That protein he said? RH what?
negative. Yeah.
Negative.
RH negative. So he seems to think that has something to do with it.
He seemed to insinuate that, right? Because he
Okay.
kicked
Yeah.
Ari off with that. Because
Yeah.
then he ended with they took his a sample of his DNA.
Right. That I could
The
understand.
woman told him that, the musician.
Okay.
He
So
that he
maybe are they using that specific DNA for some type of hybrid or something like that? I don't know. I've never heard that. I'm not really, but maybe he knows something I don't. I'm sure he
Yeah.
does.
Apparently, it's very rare, and I've even heard from the biblical fundament that if you have HR negative, you might be related to the giants from the biblical times.
Oh,
Okay.
really?
It's always that HR negative is always associated with abductees, aliens. Um, you're more likely to have ghost encounters. I don't know if that's true. It is very rare to
Yeah.
have that.
No
It's
kidding.
not like, I think, is it 1 out of 50 or 1 out of 100? I'll have to look it up, but
Didn't say.
Wow.
Super interesting. I see. I
Well,
see. I see.
I'm
He's
back,
back.
guys.
I
there
hear
he
it.
is.
Hear it.
welcome back, Carter.
Yep. Yep. Okay, so where did we leave up? Okay, so
The
um,
the woman, the musician, told you that you had 3 encounters, and they took your DNA.
okay, so then I realized, that there's something going on here. So I said to her, I said, "Tell me about your visit." Here's her exact words. She does like home health care for people that are, getting ready to check out in Upper area. She's a wonderful girl,
Hmm.
divorced, but she said to me, I was upstairs. This is on what we call the mountain road, goes up by the golf course and up to the ski center in Tupper. She said it was, like 2 or 3 o'clock in the morning. And she says, all of a sudden, 3 blue white light beings showed up in my room. And she said, Scott, I don't know what happened, but they appeared. They're interdimensional, by the way. She goes, and then they, were teaching me things, and they told me about what happened to you. I couldn't believe it. But it did happen.
And she was on the list, right? 149?
Oh yeah, she's 149. Now here's another thing. Everything happens for a reason, because like I said, my nightmare, I told the kids, was I got fucked in the ass by these 3 rookies. I'm serious.
I love that you call
That's
them.
when they laughed at me. Yeah, that's when they laughed at me, and they said, "Yeah, it was a nightmare, Dad." It wasn't.
Mm.
They took a DNA sample because not much longer after that, I had a meeting with these 2 guys from They thought they were smarter from me from fucking Ruby headquarters. Dan Manor, Danny's son, and his boss. The first fucking thing, before he even came in the house, two of them, he said, Scott, do you know about Operation so-and-so? I'm not going to name it, but I did. I didn't say a word. I said, no. So they wanted to talk to me, and let's put it this way. I knew what they were up to because their boss sent them down. Their boss was a major who was sent up from Albany headquarters. They got their asses kicked after what happened, but let's explain to it. And they wanted to know how much I knew, not only about drug dealing, but about Colin Gillis. They knew what happened to Karen Wilson. Both times, New York State Police tried to kill me.
Mm.
Yeah.
For what?
Actually, okay, so let's start with Karen Wilson. The only fucking reason I got involved with this is Laura and I, we both we're both very highly educated, but we both have had multiple surgeries, And so she was in a lot better shape than me, trust me. Plus she's 20, 25, 21 years younger than me. So what happens is we went to Plattsburgh and for shopping, and then there were some things we couldn't get there. We dropped off the kids at our house, and we went down to the Grand Union to pick up whatever we needed. We ran into a friend's wife from talk about connected, from Potsdam originally, last name of Clark. She's telling us about their business. They have a food business, a pizza business, at CEO Lumber they rented. The lumber company's out of business. But the whole point is, we bought him a new snowplow. Oh, that's nice. He said, but he just had back surgery. He's home in bed. I've had 6 back surgeries, so I know that deal. So, good. Laura and I say goodbye, get our stuff. We're at my childhood intersection. I could see my parents' house. We're the last ones to get to this 4-way. And I'm explaining to Laura, who's turned facing me, about how lucky we were to have this neighbor on the left side of our car, a fucking truant officer, Mr. Pete. Imagine a truant officer in your neighborhood of 116 kids. But in any event, all of a sudden, just before it was our turn to go, her husband, 10 days after open back surgery, driving on Percocet, hit us at 65 miles an hour with that snowplow. We had the trailer hitch, for some reason, still in the back of that Suburban, which we had purchased brand new. We cleared the intersection, didn't touch it, and landed on the other side. He rolled backwards and down this hill. And so all of a sudden, because there was a LP gas truck back where we were talking, I thought the truck exploded. And I said, my God, that truck exploded, Laura. She goes, no, that son of a bitch hit us. And she was turned talking to me. She saw him coming out of the corner of her left eye. It happened so quick. So in any event, she ended up with 2 cages in her lower back. Now this gets to how we get to Karen Wilson. So I had a ruptured disc in my neck. And but the thing is, we had to go to specialists, and the person that had to treat both of us was at UVM. So we were traveling 3-4 days a week, and the kids were in school, babysitter and everything. And it just got to be too much. And her parents said, come on, move in with us. The kids can go to school up here. And it's only 15 minutes, across the ferry to go to Burlington. We did. Now, I had a previous injury from workers' comp, and they made me an offer, and we were waiting for the mail. We had one common mail drill. We come home, mail's open. There's the offer, which I didn't take. I said to Laura, do you believe that someone opened our mail? She goes, Scott, just let it go, let it go. At dinner that night, her mother demanded that I give them $30,000 out of this $140,000 settlement. So they could move to Phoenix and build a new house. They had to leave Plattsburgh. Why? Her cousin, former Major Jack Lawless, who I did security analysis with at the Olympics, Troop B, reason I was sent home, knew what happened to Karen Wilson, but you couldn't get elected up there unless you had Stafford's backing. And he became sheriff for $100,000 a year, and that's a nice nut after you get your state police major retirement. So he didn't want to do it, so he had his cousin Karen dime Stafford. The night Karen was killed in Stafford's town car, black one, in Albany. I'll back it up. Stafford came from military intelligence, became a state senator, and we used him to what you call get the ring of friendly eyes around a nuclear facility. In other words, hey, I see something strange, and they report it. Therefore, he had to meet with Karen's dad, who was in charge of nukes at the base there. That's where Karen was a senior. And she was hot. I got a picture. I'll send it to you. And the thing is, he says to her, hey, I can get you on a free scholarship into Albany State, and I get your job as a Senate page. So did Bruno and Pataki. They ran New York State back then. You couldn't get a bill passed the Senate without them. The night she was killed, she was coming back her senior year at 22 years old. With his fuck buddy. You know how they are. But in the back seat of that town car, she was coming back from a tanning booth. She was going on spring break. Don't think for 1 minute that fucking Stafford didn't like that. She bought herself a new two-piece. She gets in the car. Finally, we got to our friend, the only one left alive of the group, George Pataki, who later became governor. Okay, so in any event.
Aliens.
No. He said, what's in the bag? She showed him. He backhanded her. She attacked him. The car got in the accident. She was killed.
Oh, gosh.
Now, I know for a fact. I hate to do this to them, but we had a lot of bad of them. We're cleaning them out. He called Counter Intel, who he worked with out of the Albany office. As far as I knew, there wasn't like there is now, an FBI office up in Plattsburgh and a U.S. Attorney's office, Assistant U.S. Attorney's office, who I meet with. But the thing is, yeah. So, he was killed, put in the trunk. They Counter Intel basically told the superintendent of state police, well, it's going to go down. And now they had their claws into Pataki. He was in the back seat with Bruno. Both of them had their girlfriends. They went after Bruno twice. They couldn't convict him. The only reason is within the last year, after we had solved everything, the only thing is we got some back. Okay, so what they did to me when I put this all together took me a couple of years, Mike Perrier, on the property where they buried his town car, which had been moved. The Scots found out about it. Here's the deal. So I'm getting these little pieces, and as again, my mind can't let them go. What the fuck something's not right here.
Yeah.
Now my dad was the first sergeant in the 1st MASH unit, the 815th. He was in charge of all the grounds and labor at Sunmount. Mom, she was the head receptionist, telephone operator there. So naturally, Ron Stafford, naturally these assholes, these politicians would come to the reserve meetings, But the thing is, Grandpa Churko was Mom's dad, Mohawkie. He was chairman, I think, of the Republican committee for the town. So, they would stop by and see him too and drink. And of course, Pete Churko was known whatever time of the year, these politicians, and I can name them, we called him Pete, Sneaky Pete, the drunk. And that's when Susie said to me that night she called before she passed away, Scott, I'm dying. I said, I know. We told you not to get the shot. She had cancer and it came back.
Mm.
She goes, but I got to tell you something. I said, okay, babe, what's going on? She goes, you always wondered, well, no. Everybody says, they always wondered why we called mommy and her sisters squirrels behind their backs. I said, because they acted like fucking squirrels. You know what I mean? She goes, what do you mean? I said, well, you know, Grandpa Pete, we called him Sneaky Pete because he'd sneak his liquor in a round bottle, you know, I mean, with a bag around it. That's
Uh-huh.
what they called Sneaky Pete. I said, I thought maybe, you know, being a Mohawk and having four beautiful daughters, he might have. She goes, no. Grandpa became a drunk after mom came home pregnant her senior year from visiting Aunt Jane and Aunt Thelma. Mike Lorello is my real father.
Mm.
Number one in North America, who left orders and took out 10 men, 2 of his own, that were going to shake me down or hurt me. I'm not kidding you.
Mm.
I came home to get my MBA, MIS, and I'll design a computer system, double masters at Clarkson, paid for by Uncle Sam, with a whole bunch of grant money to do security on the Olympics, 765 kV line, and to come up with an education program for law enforcement around Fort Drum, because Scott Lutsky, we're also moving the 10th into Fort Drum. So, good. I had 3 offices, different teams, kept them separate. They did all their work, you know, lots of research, grant money, all this stuff. In fact, one of them is now nationwide, the one for safety and security for the elderly. I've got a copy of those grants. I'll send you the paperwork or the news announcement. So in any event, things are going good, except Scott I'm not an office person. I was born and brought up in the Adirondacks. I was a skier. You know, I like to be outside once in a while.
Yeah.
And so everything's going good. And I called my people and I said, look, I need a break. Everything's going good. We got management. Don't worry about it. And they said, okay. So they said, what are you going to do? I said, I'm going to call the Union Hall. There's a new relief group going on in the village. And I said, 2 months. That's all I have. We have no courses in the summer this time. And they said, okay, do it. So I called Mr. Agati and I said, hey, now I'm bored. Said, how'd you like to be labor steward for 2 months on the relief group? I said, are you kidding me? He goes, no. He said, just for 2 months. Don't worry about it. The first time they ever used interlocking paving stone, I'm looking at a patio at my son's house right now, in North America and United States. It came out of Unilock from Canada. So naturally, I'm interested. I took Latin for 4 years, and I knew about the Appian Way, and you know, I heard about how big it had gotten in Europe and everything. Fuck it. So, you know, a steward's job, all you do is go around and settle fights, basically arguments. But the whole point is, big island right next to Clarkson, you know, where Route 11 comes down, with where they started. It must be, I don't know, 3,000 square feet or more there. And so everything's piled there, and the people are there, and you know, the superintendent from Searstone out of Syracuse had the contract, and I see everybody, you know, talking and everything, and I'm there, and you walk up to the guys, and the superintendent, he had a paver and he had literature in his hand, and he comes up to me and says, Scott, can I talk to you for a minute? I said, of course. That's, you know, I said, well, you got a problem with somebody? She goes, no, Scott. I said, I'm illiterate. I can't read. You know, I almost said, are you fucking kidding me? I didn't. I was shocked. I said, yeah. I said, okay. I said, you know, you can go to night school and get that. He said, they got me traveling all over the time. I don't have time. I said, what do you need? He said, well, can you read it and do a little pad for the men, explain how to do it? Because of your authority as a labor steward, they won't think less of me. I said, of course I will. I did. Okay? Right from base all the way up through screeding, the whole 9 yards. It was fun. Good. And then the men went out, did the job, and he thanked me, and off I went.
Mm.
Next thing I know, the fucking village hears about it, sees it. Hey, we got a couple small jobs for you. But that night, my father-in-law was chief of staff of the hospital, and we had dinner with him. Towards the end of the dinner, Henry says to me, hey, I said, what, bud? He says, I hear you're in charge of that new stone on that road job. I said, no, I'm not. He says, Scott, that's not what I hear. I said, what are you talking about, Henry? He said, well, you know those 2 doctors from California that we got that are building places? I said, yeah. Drunk, fat, and kicking. I said, one was a cooter doctor, the other one was a surgeon. He said, they had a meeting in Canton at our hospital in Canton. They drove by and they saw you doing it. They came right to me and they said, hey, tell your son-in-law we want to use that stuff at our houses. I laughed at him. I said, I don't think, Henry. I said, you know what I do. And I said, I got my hands full. I said, sure, I got a couple months off from school, but just we're lucky we got them. He said,
Hey, Scott, can I cut you off for a second?
Sure can.
Hey, okay. I want to back up. I want to talk about those abductions that you had.
Okay.
What did you see?
First of all,
Huh?
First of all, anybody who calls it an abduction's out of their mind. But that's the way I'm gonna. Because why? Because
no. What do you want to call it?
To it before. It's just part of the fucking program that you came to do here from Earth. You agreed to this before you even incarnated on Earth, and that's the truth.
Well, I just want to talk.
I know.
Right. Yeah. Okay.
Okay. So every time it was, all I can tell you, and a lot of people will say the same thing. You have never felt feeling of love like you do when you get what you call an abduction. I don't know what it is, but it's like you've known them all your life, and it's like, hey, how are you doing? And I'm serious. Every single one of them, and I lost count after 200. Okay?
There's no sense of fear in your eyes at all?
Night. Pardon?
You didn't fear anything when you were in there?
Honest to God, and the same thing with Laura, not one bit.
Wow.
It was like home week. Now, I got a funny one for you. One night, and I can tell you where we were. On our trips to brief the Hopis, on our trip, we I took that 5-month trip. Okay, we spent a month in D.C. and I can't discuss that. We were in New York City, New England. We both had QHHTs with Diane Morrison. I showed her my projects. We met with the Fuscos. We moved to New York City. That's top secret. And then to New Jersey, naturally. I think he figured that one out. Where I had relatives. And then from there, we went to Washington for a month. And then from there, we met up with 2 childhood friends for 2 weeks in North Carolina. Went to Florida. Now, one of the reasons we went to Florida is because Laura's uncle, Steve Manor, the youngest brother, her mommy was the oldest. They were so proud of Uncle Steve. He set up the internet gambling operation for the Irish mob. I shit you not. They changed the laws. So they moved to Costa Rica, and they were good until they changed the laws that made him liable. And for what he told me, he said, fuck you, I'll quit. I'll go work in the casino out west, and that's it. He did. Then he quit after that. So when I interviewed him in his kitchen when the women were touring the house, I said, Steve, I don't give a fuck about the gambling money. And I thought so. I said, listen, who gave him the fucking cop uniforms? The exact words were this: a gambling debt enforcer, a Boston cop. I'm not going to mention names. You see how everything's connected? So, yeah. So,
Scott, I got a question for you,
so
Scott.
yeah,
May I ask a question? You said
of course.
all of your encounters were not only not fearful, but you felt love. For the people out there that have had traumatic encounters and feel like they've been taken against their will, what would you think would be the reason for some people having a lovely encounter and some people having a traumatic encounter?
I think it's a message. I think there's something in their lives that weren't. You see, when you come to, well, as you know, 3D is free choice. Probably, as far as I know, the only planet that has free choice. And so you come here, and then you're, according to Dolores Cannon and everybody too, your memory's wiped. It's up to you to evolve properly. So all I can say is that I haven't led a perfect life. Okay, no one has. But basically, when you go way back on your QHHTs and you find out that you're the asshole called Enki that has incarnated 100 times because the genetic code for human beings has been corrected. They know what works and what doesn't work. They gave me these codes. I have them all written down. Not only the blood types, but the genetic codes and how you look at the blood type of the mother and what happens when you're Rh negative and she's not. A blood type when your mother's Rh negative, and there's certain members of the family, just like usually just one, that won't nurse from their mother. There's a reason for it. Laura was the baby of hers. She had an older sister and two older brothers. She never nursed from her mother. My son Jace was what you call infantile twist and feed. He wouldn't nurse from, but yet Scotty Joe, his sister, Steve War's daughter, yeah, nothing knows. Nursed till she was 3.5 years old. Okay? So, what I also have found out is that these visits skip a generation. All you need is 3 proofs for me. Why? After the visit started in 2014, we always came down or after Christmas. Jace's mom was still alive and she had Christmas with them. And right after Christmas, we would come down because it was my daughter-in-law's, it's her birthday, New Year's Eve. And we always had, certain traditions. First night we're here, I was in the living room on the computer doing some work. Jace walks in. He says, "Dad, you want to hear something crazy?" I said, "Well, what now?" He said, "Eva my granddaughter, just asked me if only you and her could go for a walk right after dinner before she has to go to bed." I said, "Of course we can. I don't give a shit." We got in the middle of the driveway. I look up and there's a red ship, which was in the picture, was in the Boston Globe the next day. I said, "Eva, look up." Looks up, she goes, "I see it, Pepper, it's beautiful." Next thing I know, we're both on the ship. Yeah. So, but they took a bus, they can take you ethereally and they can take you physically. Okay? So here I am looking out the window. They got her in a room and I'm watching us walk in the neighborhood. I'm thinking, what the fuck is going on here? And we get back to the driveway and boom, they popped her down first. She takes off, runs into the house, tells everybody, and they pop me down. So I'm standing there thinking, Jesus Christ, what fucking now? And this huge, that's the first time I've seen him, red orb, huge, came down and sat right on top of the house.
Mm.
Now, when I was doing the paving stone throughout New England, I was traveling from Canton, New York, up through Tupper, Long Lake, Warrensburg, all the way down to get back to New England. About 7 hours. However, one early morning, probably about 4, I'm whipping on the Long Lake Tupper Road in a Saab 900 Turbo, gray one. And right at a thing they call Big Brook, where Whitney's Gate, on the right, where Cliff DeMars used to live, he was a gatekeeper. I look to the left, and there's that big red orb, and I'm thinking, boy, that's strange. What the fuck is a red moon doing right there? The next thing I could only remember, I'm pulling into my hotel in New Haven, thinking, where the fuck? I don't remember going through Albany. A red orb, every colored orb has a purpose. Red orb is protection. So what was going to happen to me on the road that night? They knew, and they didn't allow it to happen. And I can't go into the rest about, but both my grandkids.
Scott, have any of
We
you
got
guys?
video.
Oh, sorry. Go ahead.
What?
Oh no, I was going to say.
Well, we got video proof. We got video proof of the kids being visited.
I was just going to ask, have any of you guys, after being taken, had any scars or anything like that on your bodies?
Don't laugh at me, but I've mountain biked every mountain range in North America. I've done Denali. I got more scars on me between getting shot up and as a kid growing up in Tupper Lake. You know, everything was rough and tumble then. But it'd be hard to be depressed because they don't have to. The interdimensional, they don't have to leave a scar in you. But let's get back to that night about the DNA sample.
Yep.
The next day, because I pulled away, that's why they were laughing at me. They knew what I was thinking. That's why they were laughing at me. I had to go to the doctors. Following day, I had surgery. I had hemorrhoids. They were like dreadlocks coming out of my ass. However, I know that's funny. No, it was horrible. I couldn't move. But the thing is,
No, tell us more.
Precancerous. They found No, they found precancerous tumors in my rectum and removed them, and I'm clean. Yeah. So there you go. Yeah. They see. Like I say, everything happens for a reason, and it wasn't just to take the DNA sample because, trust me, three high-ranking guys, 2 state police, 1 chief of police got caught. Very close friends on a federal wiretap. The reason we moved, they're going to kill me over Colin Gillis. Yep. Was those two of those two BCI? The daddy's the one who got set up by the drug dealers. Thank God. Last summer, Kelsey Amell from Tupper Lake on a thread said, "You don't know what you're talking about, Scott." I said, "Really?" I set her up because I had heard things. I said, "Give me your version." Here's her words. 2 guys, one of them last name Larkin, that was confirmed to me, heard one of them had a pocket scanner, my nephew, and they heard the police were coming to save him. They were worried about what he was going to tell them. They got a car. They went down. They found him. They thought they beat him to death. They left him in the road. So yeah. But from what we got, they thought he was dead. He hit him, and they put him in the trunk, bury him where they did at first, Trooper Cohan's property, right next to the scene of the accident. They opened the trunk, and from what we were told, he wasn't dead, but he was mangled to the point where someone put a bullet in his head. That's murder. No matter how you look at it, it's murder.
Yeah.
Hmm.
Yeah.
All right. I don't want to go
Yeah.
off
So you
topic.
wonder why they wanted to kill me? Huh?
Yeah, makes sense.
Yeah.
So Scott,
Yep.
I
But
got I got
now
the
wait a
big.
minute. Wait a
Hold
minute.
on. All right, go
Okay,
ahead.
just let me. I want to expand this, and then you can ask me 1,000 questions.
Okay, got you.
Okay, so Jace's mommy passed away. He called me. This is after the visit started. He said, "Dad, Mom passed away." I said, "I know. She's standing here right now. That's the beauty of the sight." He says, "I need you to do something for me," and he explained everything. He said the police need a copy of the divorce for whatever reason. She was found dead. She had been dead for a week in the house. Drugs and alcohol. So I said, okay, I'll go get it. So I went to the town hall to get my copy, and as I walked out, Major Tim McCullough, who had retired, I hadn't known Timmy. I fed him cases for years. Calls me and he says, "Scott." I said, "What up, bud?" He says, "What the fuck's wrong with this world? Things like everything's going crazy." I said, "Tim, you really want to know?" He said, "What's why I called you, Scott?" I said, "Timmy, you remember that night in August of 1970? You called me about 2 o'clock in the morning, woke me up. You said, 'Scott, get your weapon. We got to go.'" He goes, "Yeah." I said, "Okay." I said, "Tim," I said, this is what I said to him. Because the next day we were going to Star Lake to look at a starfish fucking sailboat or something for his kids. And I said, "You're a little anxious to get that fucking sailboat?" He said, "Scott, I'm on my way. I'll pick you up out front." So I'm thinking something's going on. So we head towards that direction. Now, when you get on Route 3, I guess it is, going towards Watertown before 56, you come after Percefield, you come to Massawepie Scout Camp on your left, a whole bunch of lakes, nice, beautiful place. And he slows down. I'm thinking, what the fuck? All of a sudden, just a little bit past it, he pulls in this dirt road at the top of the hill. He says, "Scott, be prepared." We get to the top of the hill, down in the field, the fucking UFO sitting there with 3 legs on it. Of course, he stops at the top of the hill, and I'm speechless. He says, "We got to make sure no one comes. The guys from Rome Griffiths are on their way to pick it up." He said, "We don't go any further. As soon as they get here, we leave." Okay. He said, "Yeah." I said, "Guess what?" He said, "What?" "They're back." I said, "What do you mean?" I explained everything to him. I know who that ship visited that night. I know the Air Force's facility on top of the mountain had a particle beam radar type thing that knocked it down. Why? In 1935, the people who came, they called the 217s. I'll send you the records, show you where you can get the book, but I have the original unedited one from the Russians after they fell apart there in the Soviet Union. They visited a 12 or 13-year-old named Egon Majejevac, what is now Croatia. The Russians owned the real estate back then. They also visited, it was RH negative, by the way. They visited, let me see, Tesla, all these guys. Okay? Einstein, find out where he came from. RH negative. So in any event, I didn't know everything there, but I knew about this. Because he ended up, Egon Majejevac, after Cambridge. He went to Princeton. And at Princeton, his niece, Kathy, who turned out to be Kathy Manor eventually, Laura's aunt, was one of his secretaries. Shirley Metcalf was the other one. In any event, he ends up at Clarkson with the gift of colloidal particle attachment, where the NASA paid for the $85 million Center for Advanced Material Processing at Clarkson University. Now, Clarkson's been with the CIA since World War II. And we had a campus in Malone. But the thing is, the connection. Laura's aunt was one of his secretaries. The other one, yeah, I was fucking. But the other one was, Kathy's husband was senior investigator Larry Manor, Danny's dad, who I worked with for years. Now, let's talk about connections. So, at night, not only did they inject monatomic gold and 2 other elements, I can't say, into my pineal gland to give me the sight. And when I say I travel, I can levitate, I travel interdimensionally, I've had that Kundalini experience. It's something like it's unbelievable when it travels through you and comes out the top of your head. I see interdimensional beings, I see angels, I see people's auras, but I also have access to the Akashic records, which makes a lot of people very uncomfortable. And they fucking should. Because we got some bad people in our government still. And when I run into a cloaked reptilian, they shapeshift and flee because they see my aura. In other words, I'm back. As insane as that sounds, this fuck story about Christ that's wasn't even his name, and there's a whole bunch of bullshit because of organized religion in it for control and rewriting the Bible. How many times have been? He was just a messenger, guy. Yeah, he comes from the source, but he was just a messenger who earned the right for immortality. When you develop your soul to a certain point, you become an enlightened. When you become an enlightened times 3, in other words, apparently 3 incarnations, whether they're on earth or wherever, and you've done the right thing, your soul has developed where you're actually, I get taken all the time physically, but yeah. Now, as far as immortality, Laura is on that path with her research. However, one night they brought me up alone. The most beautiful interior of the ship was like white quartz walls where all the light came from. Like a stainless steel railing separating 2 parts. This old guy, when I say old, I've never seen anything like this in my life, so old. And he had, like Yoda had that reddish brown robe with the hood over his head and everything, all crimped over. He greets me at the opening and he takes my hand. I mean, what else you gonna do? And he brings me to the left side of the railings where there was a table and 2 chairs. He pulled out my chair. I sat down. He went out, pulled the other chair. He took his hood off. And I'm sitting there looking at this face that is just so old and wrinkly. It's just unimaginable.
Well, he looked
the next
human
thing
though?
I know. Oh yes, just like
okay.
you and I. But I mean, okay. So what happens next is this man and woman in white gear, just like you and I, come out. The man's holding a tray. A tray, I could see a vial and a syringe and some cotton balls and some, I assumed that was alcohol, but I don't know. And so, I'm sitting there like dumbfounded with what I'm witnessing. And she comes over to the old guy, rolls up his left sleeve, and, she's making sure that I'm watching everything. And he comes over with the tray, and she takes the cotton ball and she wipes his arm. I'm thinking, must be he's going to get shot. And she draws up her, the amount in her vial, checks it, injects it. And within seconds, this guy reversed aged. Now, I'm serious.
Wow.
I'm shocked. I'm sitting there, my mouth is wide open. I'm looking at this guy become a young man. That is, and it's described in the Bible, but if you read Osho's Book of Wisdom, don't forget, Osho was visited also. He says in his book, the next enlightened will be like none other, but he goes on and talks about the fact that their duty on earth during these times ain't exactly a lot of fun. but they've reached a point in the evolution of their soul where they're granted immortality. I'll send you that verse. I've got that too.
Scott, when was the last time you were taken? Do you know?
Geez, let me see. When's the last time I had 3 light beings? Was I was all alone out back, and when I sit in the sun and just close my eyes and put my third eye to the sun immediately. The sun's a portal, by the way. I see ships coming in and out of it all the time. But also, light beings that are interdimensional can travel using the portals. I'm sure that's why, you know, those round things, they called them portals or stargates or whatever they were. That's all part of why we went into Iraq and all that shit. That's another fuck story coming to unravel right now. And I can tell you right now, if there's anything called a antichrist on this earth, it has to be Netanyahu. Because we have been so close to nuclear war that it's been unbelievable. However, the first 45 that I had to brief, you can't cook off a modern weapon in our arsenal without one of these guys being in the train. After I briefed them, they wanted to know what it was all about. What's going on, Barton? We know you know. I said the underground basis, the unbound binary system. I said, explain. Well, I said, if you read Velikovsky's work, Worlds in Collision, Earth in Upheaval, he wrote other books. I said, you will see in his book, Earth in Upheaval, where he mentions what we witnessed. I said, what do you mean? I said, so I had the book and I read it to him. During these times when other heavenly bodies, now don't forget, he was a world famous Russian psychiatrist that had one hobby in life, taking legends and stories, matching them up on the same timeline around the globe. Yes. To see if there's any validity in them. So here's his quote. During these times when other heavenly bodies were traversing the inner solar system. That's why they chemtrail. They were chemtrailing today, the cocksuckers. And earthquakes and volcanoes were horrible all over the world, you think? Get an app. All of a sudden, the Inuit said they saw the sky come close to Earth. Things quieted down. However, they decided if that happened again, we don't want to get our villages crushed. So they installed totem poles around their villages to hold the sky up in case it happened again. They weren't the only ones to witness. Samath and his wife wrote a book called The Night the Sky Fell. The Night the Stars Fell. Okay? Now, when you're out, like I am right now, clear sky. Okay, then all of a sudden, this is what happened to us. It was just a beautiful night. We were just talking about picking up these scumbags the next day, a father and son team. The dad was at St. Lawrence, the kid was at Clarkson. The whole point is, all of a sudden, zoop, and that's when he said to me, hey, look at the sky. Everything seems so close. Yeah. They pulled space in half. 13.2 billion light years away. Zip. Just like that. Just like you take your hand, put it out flat, and then bring your fingers to your wrist. That's what it's like.
Hey, Scott,
They're the
can I
only
ask you
ones
a question real quick?
What?
Can I ask you a quick question? Help us settle
Of
this
course.
once and for all. Is the Earth flat or is it round?
Well, every time I've seen it from space, it's fucking as round as can be.
Thank you.
But if we live in a hologram projection, which I think is true, I think that we're like souls that create our own environment collectively. But The thing is, from what I've seen, it's around. I've been all over the world too, and I've been on the oceans where I know the horizon, is dipping, and that don't happen in a flat world.
Scott, have you ever thought of starting up your own podcast?
I've been asked to, but
you're a great storyteller.
If you tell your stories
that's what
on
everybody
YouTube,
says.
Yeah.
if you just made a YouTube channel where you just sat in a rocking chair or by a fire, told your stories, you'd
True.
have a lot of fans.
Yeah.
I'd watch.
Well,
Yeah.
my Laura says the reason I divorced you is because if I knew if I didn't, you wouldn't get these fucking cases done. Now this week I'm going into the other cases are solved, by the way. When the AG of New York State, who's got her own fucking problems, calls you and says, Scott, everything that you gave us is true and more. It's just absolutely amazing work. She said, can I ask you a question? I said, of course. She said, why did you put up with him this long? I said, well, for one thing, it kept my cover. For another thing, a lot of work got done between now and then. But if you think for one fucking minute that I'm going to let this go, you're out of your mind. I said, I did not know. I mean, I got a law degree. I got 2 of them, in fact. But I said, I did not know about Colin. I mean, his grandparents, and my parents are good friends. My dad sold his grandpa his greenhouse. I didn't know the kids. They were younger, his parents. I come home after that 5-month trip. Our apartment wasn't ready. We had a Suburban all set with a freezer and a cooler, small stuff in it and everything. That's what we camped in. And we were camping up at Higley Flow. I took a shower, walk out of the shower room. There's a certain somebody in a certain somebody's vehicle, that's a green vehicle, giving me, come here. You know what I mean? Hey, Scott, come here. So I go over to him and I said, yeah, what's up? He said, Scott, I got to tell you this. I said, okay, what's up going on? He said, well, a while back there, I was going to see our Green Mountain boys. I said, so you were our rep to the Greens, eh? He goes, yeah. You know what I mean? Green Mountain boys in Vermont, New York Air National, the Vermont Air National Guard. Yeah, those guys are a crazy bunch of fuckers. But the whole point is they're good pilots, and they are our backup, our air cover for the tents. So I said, yeah. He said, well, I like to go through the mountains. And I said to him, you idiot. That's the closest way to go from Fort Drum. Otherwise, you'd have to go across New York State and then up Lake Champlain. You know what I mean? And he laughed. He said, I said, yeah, so what? He said, I was stopped at the St. Lawrence Franklin County line. I said, no shit. By who? He said, state troopers. They had a roadblock. I said, what for? He took a picture of Colin Gillis out of his left pocket. He said, they showed me the picture of this kid. His name is Colin Gillis. They said, have you seen this kid? He said, yeah, I told him this. I pointed. Buried right over here on Trooper Cohan's property. He said, Scott, they didn't know what to ship or go blind. They parted, and I drove away. He said, you got your RICO case, pal. Aaron Wilson. Now, there's a thing, anybody who knows RICO, especially the guy who created it, Paul Batista, taught at John Jay College, who was a friend of mine, called the Last Act Clause. There's a 7-year statute of limitations on RICO. However, during that 7 years, if one person who was involved in the group who caused the disappearance of either Karen or Colin threatened you one fucking time, it reset the clock.
Mm.
What do you think I did on purpose?
Ratted them out.
Okay. Well, I'd make a phone call to headquarters and give a shit. But after it was proven, and she told me, the governor walked into headquarters and said, gentlemen, you have 2 choices. You can either become lieutenants and go back to work in the field or resign.
Mm.
Headquarters knew everything about Colin and Karen. Nice people, eh?
Yeah. So
Karen was the only child. Colin, I think he had a sister and a brother or something. So they
yeah,
handed me that case, which gave us two acts, RICO acts, racketeer influence, corrupt organization.
yeah.
When you hide bodies and you're supposed to be in charge of law enforcement in your state, you got a fucking problem. And it's not just that. Because after Timmy and I talked, he said, "What are you going to do?" And I said, "I'm going to RICO him." I said, "Timmy, if we don't bring honor back to the grave, who the fuck's going to do it?" He said, "You're right." So I've been in contact with several other guys who are doing some. There's a reporter for WKBW out of Buffalo. I did not know anything that went on. Unbelievable. The evidence that Timmy turned in and some other good troopers about the corruption that went on in New York State Police, including Governor Hochul, her husband, who used to be the U.S. attorney. Yeah, for Western
Wow.
District. Hey, but how come
So, Scott,
wait a minute, how come he's got every concession contract in the new arena paid for by the state of New York and his wife's governor? That was brought to me by another county Republican chairman up at Killington one day. When I was getting on the gondola with this cutie who I knew her coach from Ottawa. I used to ski at Big Tupper. World Cup racer. We're going up on a gondola to take a ride. And this guy walked up to me, Scott, I got to talk to you, and he told me about that. But you see how corrupt New York State is?
yeah,
It's not just New York State. Okay, good.
yeah, it's
Our
everywhere.
corporate
It's unbelievable.
our corporate structure in this country, corporations don't have morals.
That's why we do
So
everything with paper. We don't,
that's
the
why what?
computers, there's no computer systems. They're walking paper around and stuff because they can manipulate that. There's no tracking
Right,
involved. So Scott,
right.
we're over an hour and a half. So usually we keep these to an hour. I love the conversation. You're a wealth of knowledge. You have so much to share, and we'd love to talk to you. We'd have to break this up and do 2, 3 episodes to get it all out of you. But
Hey, anytime. Listen, if you wanted to set up another one,
yeah,
I mean, I have right now. I've got I did a show with not only with Aggie Nose, but I did a show with another guy, and
hmm
they went nationwide. I mean, worldwide. And after that, I got like 6 invitations to do shows that are coming up.
great.
But yeah, because listen, guys, that ship. I mean, isn't it convenient that the government got shut down and they can't give you pictures with our new Webb telescope? Jesus Christ, they can see light years away. They know it's that supposedly Atlas. They know it's a ship. I know who's on that ship, and it's not reptilians either.
Wow, you just blew my
Now,
mind.
I'll
That's
make it quick.
fantastic. Love it.
Okay, listen.
All right,
Hey,
so wait, wait,
listen,
wait, wait. You
listen.
got to tell me
I,
about. You got to tell me. You got to give me a little something about Bigfoot, man.
okay, so they're as real can be. This planet was supposed to be the Garden of Eden. This was like we're at the very edge of our, spiral of our, and this is like a place where people could on their spaceships, which they still do, but a lot of it's underground or underground in mountains or in underwater.
hmm
They come to visit here.
Yeah.
Okay, now when you say things like these creatures of legend, creatures of these things, they're all real.
Mm.
Okay, so it's just like octopuses. I mean, and dolphins, they're fucking smarter, and whales, they're smarter than humans. But we're destroying our planet,
Yeah.
all in the name of greed. All in the name of greed,
Absolutely.
materialism.
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay, they're not going to allow us to destroy this world. This world doesn't belong to us. Basically, it belongs to all life in the universe.
Yeah. So
Everything
why are
is
we here,
connected.
Scott? What? How are we originally
Why
from?
are we here?
Are we originally from Mars or from another planet or where are we from?
Okay, here's all I know is that there was life on Earth. Okay,
Hmm.
because the council. Oh, by the way, I gotta admit this: the red ship. I'm the captain of that red ship. I'm serious. This is
Great.
not my first trip here. Okay, so how did I know that? Well, because the last thing they did after they taught me how to build the device that stops time and everything, and how to project plasma using Mandelbrot set torsion effect controlled by boron particles to project plasma to fold the fabric of space with the Star of Bethlehem. They the thing with the site was like mind blowing. I did not know it happened. I'll be honest with you, because when too much too quick is a lot for the human mind to do. However,
Yep.
while okay, so the Jews give me this list. I said, what the? I said to Laura, I said, what the fuck's an enlightened person? So she gets on her computer and she's next to me and she's looking at these people and looking at the correspondence and the pictures. She said, Scott, look at this list. Look who's on it. She showed it to me. I said, that's gonna be a fucking joke. Then she says to me, what the fuck did you do to your head? I said, what are you talking about? She said, you were picking the side of your head. I said, Laura, you're full of shit. She goes, Scott, I'm serious. I said, what the fuck are you talking about? She pushed right above the center of my left ear. And I said, ouch. But that was like a light switch
Mm.
because I put my finger up there and there's this red swollen thing with a fucking hole in the middle of it. That's where they injected the monatomic gold. By the way, the Anunnaki running around with those little bags, what the fuck do you think was in those bags?
Yeah.
Monatomic gold.
Ah,
That's why they lived. Because when you consume that on a regular basis, you have zero energy loss
anatomic gold.
because monatomic,
Mono.
monatomic. Okay, now monatomic gold, when you heat gold to a certain temperature, disappears. And then it flashes back in
Mm.
white powder form. That's what they used to put in their atmosphere to protect themselves not only from their infrared star, but because of the damage that they did to their own planet's atmosphere when they had nuclear war against themselves. You wonder why we act this way? And what else was there? And so they basically came here to get gold to save their planet, but they had done this before at other places, but they needed
Ah,
more and more each time. Okay, so when
yeah,
they sprayed it
gotcha.
in the sky, okay, they consumed it by breathing it in,
Ah,
and all of a sudden they're living for hundreds of thousands of years.
yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
So,
So that's the secret. Yeah.
Okay.
And but what it does to you in your pineal gland, it's just unbelievable. I mean, I, sometimes it's a little bit too much to see certain things and experience things. But like fairies are real. I'm serious.
We had
And
another guest
other
on
people
the show,
have
I think.
the what?
We had another guest on the show, I think, that said that.
yeah, fairies, gnomes, all kinds of craziness.
Yeah, no,
Yeah.
What do you think
yeah,
about
because it's
frequency?
not
Like vibration and frequency? Do you think like I mean, because I'm starting to have
everything
this
is nothing.
belief. Yeah. So
That's
like
that's everything.
yeah,
Everything is as energy,
yeah.
frequency, and vibration. Okay, but it's the vibration rate that determines what dimension you're in.
Right.
Yeah, I've heard that. Okay.
Yeah, yeah. So
I've even heard of
I
people I've even heard of people doing it like at their house, like opening up a portal with certain
Frequency.
frequencies and stuff like that. Have you heard of that?
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah.
Okay.
I listen. You know how many times Laura and I've been in bed, and the dogs. You know, we had two beautiful dogs, and we had three cats. And we're down to one. But the thing is, they're all in bed. We have this big, giant, fucking California king or whatever, and all of a sudden, three blue light beings walk right through the left side of the wall into the bedroom at this foot of the bed. You know how many times that's happened? It happened to me the other day here, in my son's backyard.
Wow.
They can come. Okay. Now, someone just posted a video about something that Dolores Cannon said. Like a lot of the shit's coming out that Nostradamus held to the last minute or whatever.
Yeah, yeah,
Edgar
yeah.
Casey. Yeah. Well, guess what? They all
Wow.
kind of match up, don't they?
Mm-hmm.
Now, here's the problem that I have. If all their predictions are true, the Hopis say the same thing. But I know for a fact that the Hopi legend of the Blue Kachina and the site is true, and so does our government.
Mm.
So our government knows.
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay,
I think really, so
they came to me. They came to me first. I was too afraid to go to anybody. They came to me.
yeah. So let me
And
let you
then,
my thought. My
okay,
thoughts are we
okay,
don't know nothing. It's all we're all just ants on an anthill. We're just working, doing what we need to do based on what we thought,
to survive.
what we need. Yeah. But it's really not true. It's really just part of a bigger mechanism, a bigger scheme of things that are going on that we're not privy to.
Right. So they stole all that money. 9/11, that was another fuck story. Anybody? I mean, I was in charge of explosives for 5 years in New York State. That was part of my job as a commissioner of labor. You know what sucked about that job? I had to
What?
inspect every fucking. I had to inspect every ski center, every ski lift, every ski lodge,
Oh.
all their equipment. Hey, but the year that I got appointed to the job, thinking that I'm going to be the next commissioner, came out with a new code rule. I had to inspect every trail. I've been skiing since I've been 5 years old.
Mm.
Can you imagine all winter long?
Mm.
That's why everybody got a ticket. Everybody got a ticket because the way they wrote the laws, I mean, if there was dead limbs over a part of a trail, they wanted them removed for safety,
Yeah.
because storms. Okay.
Sure.
But the thing is, I'd make up fucking something, all because I got to go back to make sure they corrected it. I
Good.
basically skied all winter, but I also did all the mines too.
Hmm.
Okay, and
So
that's how I found out.
I got a quick question
How
for
I
you.
found out. Okay, go.
Watertown, there's Area 51 out there. Do you ever hear of
No,
this? There's a
Water
vortex
Fort
in
Drum, Fort
Thompson.
Drum, Watertown.
No, it's Thompson
Area
Park.
51's out west.
Yeah, but it's New
Thompson Park.
York's
What
Area
about it?
51. It's called Thompson Park.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's supposed to be a
Okay.
vortex or something out there. It's called Area 51 of New York. And there's a connection to the gentleman who designed Central Park, also lived out there in Watertown and designed that park too as well. And so did some other work. But there's a lot of strange activity and things. I went to go check it out, and I had a severe I'm not a headache person, and I had a severe headache the entire time I was there. So I'm like, there's got to be something to this.
Yeah, and me and my buddy went
The
out
energy,
there with
maybe.
EMF detectors, and we got a reading of like 68 or 69, which was like equivalent to being
Mm-hmm.
underneath like a telephone pole or a power pole in
Mm.
the middle of the woods. Yeah.
Well, I don't know what they got a tremendous amount of electronic equipment at Fort Drum because when the
Just
ships would
outside of
come to
Yeah.
me, they shut everything down at Drum, and that's why my buddy, for 3 weeks before the red ship started visiting, we're climbing. It was called Fire Tower Weekend. It's when they light up the lights of the fire
Oh
towers,
yeah, yeah, super
But
cool.
okay, so we're going up Mount Arab, outside of Persefield.
Hmm.
And Laura's with me, and then there's Alicia Lamb. She was a grad student living with us. Her dog. The reason she had to live with us, she adopted a dog she called Vazi in Madagascar, where she did the lemur studies. And so she gets to school late. She, all confused because classes had started. And so they told her, go find Laura and Scott. Because, I'm the largest time single donor to Clarkson University. But they knew that we had a house with extra bedrooms. So she did, and we let her move in. So we're climbing the mountain. And in my backpack is a little red Aussie that we had. And then our Aussie Australian dog, who's, I forget, he's 5 years older than this one. So in any event, we're climbing, and then the guy who I knew from Fort Monmouth, and I didn't even know he was married then, we run into each other. It's like, hey, what the fuck are you doing here? And so we're talking and everything. And his wife's looking with her hands, like, who the fuck is this guy? So I see it, and I point at I said 95 B10, ASI V5, Military Police Special Forces V5. That's when you're Army Special Intelligence assigned to the CIA. Oh. So she looks at him. She goes, boy, we know what that means. So I figured, because he's still active. And so I said, where the fuck are you now? He goes, I'm the Provost Marshal at Fort Drum. Come down and see me. Well, when the visits were night after night after night with all different types of ships, and every fucking time they came, they would jump over Fort Drum, shut everything down. So he calls me. He said, Scott, we know. I said, good. I said, I was going to call you, but I said, this is awful confusing to me. He said, Scott, the guys think it's an alien invasion. Can you come down and brief them? He said, I know you briefed the group at Region 1. I said, okay. So I go down there. I got a pass. Check in at the gate. Knew a couple of the guys. And I go in. And we talk. First thing he says, on the mountain, he says to me, are you going to breed them? I said, yeah, that's what we got to meet, a male and female. He knew about some other jogs that I've trained for justice. He said, will you promise me a puppy? I said, of course, don't worry about it. I said, you're going to fucking pay for it. He laughed. So in any event, he brings me, and he says, Scott, the guys from the Space Force are here. I said, what? He said, 65 of the top guys. I said, why? What the fuck? He said, Scott, they think it's an alien invasion. I said, you got to be fucking shitting me. He goes, no. So I said, come on. So he brings me in this big hall, brand new with law enforcement. This building's amazing. And they're all sitting there. And they all didn't have the same uniforms on there. Some were Marines, okay? But the Space Force belongs to the Navy because they're ships. So he introduced them. He introduced me to everyone. Some of them knew my background. Some of them didn't. Most of them didn't. And he basically says, they've been visiting Scott. I said, Scott, explain it to him. So I did. So I said to everybody, I said, okay, gentlemen. I said, first of all, saw him fold space, right? Yes, sir, we did. I said, you got to admit, that's pretty amazing. Imagine what it takes to fold the fabric of space. We live in an electric universe, but I said, holy shit. So I said, you sure that you saw him fold space? They said, yes, sir. I said, okay, good, that's established. I said, but when they were over my house, then they jumped over Fort Drum and shut everything down. Did you see a move? And they said, no. I said, so do you realize that they were stopping time? I said, you say you have the same records I do about what the Russians were told, that they fold or bend space and stop time and create wormholes to get here. And they said, yeah. I said, okay. So now everybody agrees that they fold space and stop time, right? I said, yeah. And I said, they also, you agree that they can shut everything that we have down at the base, just shut everything off. They said, yeah. So I said, so you're thinking that it's an alien invasion, is that right? Yes, sir. So I said, guys, I was wondering, what the fuck do you have in this base that can hold space and stop time? I said, gentlemen, do you think you'd be here right now with that type of technology if they were our enemies? They're all just standing there, you know, they never thought about it. I said, then I went on, told them about Majevic and his gift. I said, that's why you're here. It was them who gave Majevic the gift of colloidal particle attachment. How do I know that? Because basically it's part of the family with Laura's aunt and Larry and Kathy and Shirley Metcalf. I said, how the fuck do I know how to pull space to stop time? You wouldn't believe the looks on their faces. I said, gentlemen, you proved to the council with your 3 ships, we got 3 big ones that can go 2 stars in their planets. I said, you proved to the council that you can travel interstellar and mind your own fucking business, like the Anunnaki. I said, gentlemen, you got an invitation to join the council. You wouldn't believe.
That's
You could
it, Scott.
see.
That's it.
Yeah.
We gotta end it there. That's
To
fantastic.
be
Well,
continued.
isn't that good news,
Be
though?
continued. Yes,
Can you
absolutely.
imagine? Can you imagine what our future is going to be like as long as
Yes.
we can take out the garbage?
That's right. That's right.
Okay.
All
Hey,
right.
anytime. You
Yeah,
know how to get a hold of me. Love you guys.
absolutely. We
Thank you.
got you. Thank you so much.
Thanks so
Appreciate
much, Scott.
You're welcome. Bye
it. Have
bye.
a good evening.
All right.
All right.
Yep. Bye.
Bye.